Everyone keeps saying you're behind. But behind assumes you and everyone else started the exact same race, on the exact same day, from the exact same line. You've been running someone else's race since you were old enough to compare yourself to a classmate. Before you had a bank account, you had a number in your head for what you were supposed to have by now. Nobody handed you that number, You just absorbed it, the way you absorb a smell in a room you've been standing in too long, until it stops registering as a smell at all and just becomes the air. There's a specific kind of tired that comes from checking someone else's life at 11 at night and feeling your stomach drop before your brain even catches up. Not sadness exactly. Something closer to falling. By the end of this, that falling feeling is going to lose its grip on you. But first, I need to tell you about a man who started so far behind. That behind wasn't even the right word for where he was. And what he figured out about starting lines is going to answer something you've been asking yourself for years. It's almost midnight and you're still scrolling. Somewhere in the last 20 minutes, a photo of a friend's new house slid past your thumb, and something in your chest dropped before you'd even finished reading the caption. You didn't choose to compare yourself. It just happened, the way flinching happens. You keep scrolling anyway, half hoping the next photo will be ordinary enough to let your shoulders drop again. It usually isn't. You check your bank balance in the bathroom at work, phone angled away from the mirror, like you're checking for something you're ashamed of. The number is the number. It doesn't change based on how carefully you look at it. But you look anyway, every few days, hoping it moved. Some part of you is always doing this quiet arithmetic in the background, subtracting your life from someone else's, even when you're not trying to. Or maybe it happens on a different app, one where everyone announces a promotion, a launch, a milestone, all on the same afternoon, like they coordinated it just to sit next to your ordinary Tuesday. You close the app. You open it again 10 minutes later anyway, the way you press on a bruise to check if it still hurts. At family dinners, someone always asks the question that isn't really a question. Where are you at these days? What are you working on? It sounds like curiosity. It lands like an audit. You give the short answer and change the subject before your voice can give anything away. Later in the car, you replay it and wish you'd said something truer. Or maybe just something shorter. Notice your jaw right now. Notice your shoulders. There's a good chance you've been carrying tension in both since sometime this morning, and you didn't clock it until this sentence pointed at it. That's not an accident. That's what carrying an invisible scoreboard around all day does to a body. It doesn't announce itself. It just settles into your neck and stays there. Maybe your partner mentions, gently, that you seem somewhere else lately, and you say you're fine, and you mean it as you say it. And then you lie there afterward wondering why fine felt like a lie the second it left your mouth. It's hard to be fully present with someone when part of you is always doing math about a life that isn't the one you're actually living. You run the math in your head while you're driving, at red lights, in the shower. If you'd started 2 years earlier, if you'd taken that other job, if you hadn't spent that year figuring out who you even were, the math never resolves into anything useful. It just repeats. The same numbers circling the same drain, going nowhere, costing you something every single time. You lie awake replaying a conversation from 6 hours ago, editing what you should have said, as if getting the words right now could reach backward and fix the moment they were needed. Your body is in bed. The rest of you is still standing in that room, still trying. This happens more nights than you'd admit to anyone who asked. You've started keeping certain achievements to yourself. Small, good things that happen in your week. because sharing them used to invite a comparison you didn't ask for. Someone else's bigger version of the same news, delivered without meaning any harm at all. So you just stopped mentioning things, quietly, without deciding to. Here is the part nobody says out loud. You are not tired from failing. You are tired from calculating, constantly, silently, how far behind a life you were never actually promised. You are tired from running a race against people whose starting line you never saw, whose help you never got, whose quiet advantages were never listed anywhere you could read them. You have been grading yourself on a curve you didn't design, against a class you didn't choose, using a rubric nobody ever showed you. And you've been doing it for so long that it stopped feeling like a choice. It just started feeling like the truth about who you are. Say that out loud in an empty room and it sounds almost funny. It isn't funny. It's just exhausting, in the way that only invisible weight can be. Nobody can see it on you. You carry it into every room anyway. So take a breath, just one. Let your shoulders drop half an inch from wherever they've been sitting all day. You don't have to fix anything yet. Just breathe, because there is a reason people keep telling you to work harder, to catch up faster, to close the gap. It sounds like help. It is the thing that has been making this worse the entire time. You reach for the obvious fix. Work more hours. Wake up earlier. Read the book that promises to help you optimize your mornings. Say yes to everything just in case saying yes is the thing that finally closes the gap. It feels productive. It feels, for a while, like proof that you're finally doing something about the fallen feeling instead of just living inside it. There was a woman I heard about once, a graphic designer in her mid-30s, who decided the way to catch up to her friends was to simply outwork the distance between them. She took a second freelance load on top of her full-time job. She stopped seeing the people who reminded her she was behind, which meant she stopped seeing almost everyone. She told herself this was temporary, a sprint, something she'd sustain for a year and then rest. The year became 18 months, then 2 years. She got the promotion. She got the second client roster. She also stopped sleeping through the night, stopped being able to sit through a meal without checking her phone. And one Tuesday morning, she sat in her car in a parking lot for 11 minutes before she could make herself walk inside, because she genuinely could not remember what she was running toward anymore. She had closed the gap. She had also disappeared into the closing of it. Her calendar looked impressive. Her hands, she told a friend later, had started shaking most mornings before her first coffee. And she'd stopped noticing that too, until someone else pointed it out. That's the part almost nobody warns you about. Working harder doesn't erase a starting line. It just buries the feeling of it under enough exhaustion that you stop noticing. For a while, until your body forces you to notice something else instead. The distance is still there. You've just gone numb to measuring it, at the cost of going numb to almost everything else too. There's a reason this trap is so easy to fall into. Effort feels controllable in a way that unfairness never does. You can't control the year you were born or the family that raised you. But you can absolutely control whether you send one more email tonight, whether you wake up at 5 instead of 6, whether you say yes to one more project. So the mind reaches for the thing it can control and quietly convinces itself that enough of that thing will eventually cancel out the thing it can't control. It never does. It just keeps you exhausted enough that you stop asking the harder question underneath it. Here is the lie, said plainly, without softening. If you just work hard enough, you can out-earn the unfairness of where you started. You can't. Effort was never going to erase a starting line. It was only ever going to change how tired you got on the way to accepting one. Let that sit for a moment. It's a heavy thing to hear, and it deserves a beat of quiet before we keep moving. Let your breath slow down. Just here. Just for this sentence. There's nothing to do with this yet. Just let it be true for a second, without rushing to fix it. Here's a man who understood this long before parking lots and second jobs existed. His name was Epictetus, and he did not start behind the way you might feel behind. He started as property, born into slavery in the 1st century, owned by a man who, by most accounts, treated him with real cruelty. His leg never healed properly after an injury in that household, and Epictetus walked with a limp for the rest of his life. He was eventually freed, likely in his 30s, with no inheritance, no family wealth, and no early advantage of any kind waiting for him on the other side of that freedom. If anyone in history had the right to spend his life measuring the distance between himself and everyone born luckier, it was him. He didn't do that. He could have spent his freedom bitter, cataloging every year that had been taken from him, every advantage other men his age had simply been born holding. Instead, sometime after gaining his freedom, he started teaching. First in Rome and later in a small town called Nicopolis, in a modest school with none of the prestige of the grand academies. He owned almost nothing: a mat to sleep on, a lamp, a few basic tools. When a thief once stole that lamp, the story goes that he simply bought a cheaper one and kept teaching the next morning, because the lamp was never the point. He built an entire philosophy around one distinction, repeated so often by his students that it became the spine of everything he taught. Some things are up to us. Some things are not. Your starting line was not up to you. Where you were born, who raised you, what they could afford to give you, what year you happened to arrive in this economy, what your body inherited, what your family passed down or didn't. None of that was ever yours to choose. You did not fail an exam you never got to study for. Say that plainly, too. You were never behind. You were simply somewhere else on a map that was never actually a race. There is something Epictetus said about starting lines that most people never hear the second half of. And once you hear both halves together, the gap you've been measuring your whole life stops meaning what you thought it meant. The first half is well known. Some things are up to us, some things are not. Waste no energy on what isn't. The second half is the part that actually sets you free, and it's this. The things that are up to you were never about outcome. They were never about the house, the promotion, the number in the account, the version of your life your cousin is currently living. The things up to you are only ever your judgments, your choices, your effort, and how you respond to what happens next. Let's make that concrete, because it means nothing as an abstraction. And abstractions never helped anyone at 11 at night. Not up to you. The year you were born. The family that raised you or didn't. Whether your parents could hand you a down payment or a debt. Whether the job market was kind or brutal the year you graduated. What your body inherited. Whether the people around you right now are further along and by how much. Whether the industry you love happened to be thriving or collapsing the year you tried to enter it. None of that was ever a test you could have studied for. Up to you, what you do with the next hour. Whether you keep comparing your 4th chapter to someone else's 10th, or whether you close that tab. How you treat the person across from you at dinner tonight. Whether you let this exact moment be enough, just for now, without a scoreboard running underneath it. Whether you speak to yourself tonight, the way you'd speak to someone you loved who was carrying exactly what you're carrying. Whether you keep score at all, or whether you finally set the scoreboard down. Notice how different that list feels in your body compared to the first one. The first list has weight you can't move, no matter how long you strain against it. The second list is light enough to actually pick up. That's not an accident. That's the whole discovery Epictetus spent his life making, and it still holds up 2,000 years later, sitting with you. Right now, in whatever room you're in. That's the whole shift. Not less effort. Different effort. Effort aimed at what's actually yours to move, instead of effort spent trying to outrun a starting line that was decided before you could speak. Next time you're standing in that bathroom at work, phone angled away from the mirror, you don't have to stop checking the number. Just notice, this time, that the number was never really the problem. The problem was measuring it against someone else's number. Someone whose starting line you never saw. Let the number be exactly what it is. Yours. Moving at your own pace, not anyone else's. Next time someone asks at dinner what you're working on, you don't need the polished answer anymore. You can say the true one. And if the true one is still becoming something, that's allowed. Nothing you're building was ever supposed to be finished by now, because now was never the deadline. Now was just wherever the person asking happened to be standing when they said it. Next time you catch yourself running the math at a red light, let it run for a second, and then let it go. You don't have to win the argument against yourself every time it starts. You can just notice it starting and choose gently not to follow it all the way down. Remember the man from the beginning, the one whose starting line wasn't even called a starting line, because there was no race he was allowed to enter. Epictetus never caught up to the freeborn Romans around him in property or status. He never closed that gap, not in the way the world usually measures gaps. What he did instead was stop measuring it. He built a school. He taught for decades. Students traveled long distances just to sit near him and hear him talk. This man with the ruined leg and no inheritance and no early advantage of any kind. And what they were coming to hear was not how to win the race. It was how to stop needing to. That's the answer to the falling feeling from the beginning of this. It was never going to be fixed by closing a distance. It gets fixed by realizing the distance was never the real thing being measured. What was actually being measured the entire time was whether you could sit still inside your own one life without needing it to look like someone else's. Feel your feet on the floor, wherever you are right now. However tired that body has been, feel the weight of your own body settling instead of straining. This isn't a metaphor. This is the actual practice, noticing what is real right now instead of what is missing. In, out, slowly. Just that. No number to hit. No one to catch up to in this exact minute. Just breath, moving in and out of a body that has carried you further than you've been giving it credit for. You can sit still inside this exact life, tonight, exactly where you are. with exactly what you have. Not because where you are is impressive, because where you are is yours, and it was never in competition with anyone else's, no matter how convincing that felt at 11 at night with a phone in your hand. There is nothing left to prove tonight. Not to the friend with the new house, not to the relative at dinner with the question that isn't a question, not to the version of yourself you built out of everyone else's timeline. You can set that version down. It was heavy, and it was never really you. And you're allowed to notice how much lighter your chest feels the moment you stop holding it up. Somewhere tonight, someone your age is buying a house. Somewhere tonight, someone is further along by every visible measure you have access to. And somewhere tonight, you are here, breathing, still standing after carrying weight most people never even saw you carry. That was never behind. That was just yours. You were never given the wrong starting line. You were simply never running the race you thought you were. Let it go. Not with effort. Just let it go. The way a hand opens when it finally stops needing to hold on. Wherever you are right now, you can stay there a little longer, without checking anything, without measuring anything, without needing this moment to prove a single thing. It's enough that you're in it. It always was.